Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my August wrap up. So as I'm kicking off this month's wrap up, it's already the 17th of August. I did intend to start this wrap up last weekend, but I had a nap instead. So here we are. It's the 17th of August. It's a Sunday. I have finished 6 books so far. One of them I'm not going to talk about in this clip. I'll talk about it in the next clip because I've literally only just finished it, so I need to digest my thoughts on it. So I'll talk about 5 books now that I've read, I think, yes, and 1 DNF. It's been not a great start to the reading month. I feel like I had a really good reading month in July. And this month so far, there's been a couple of flops. So I'm hoping the second half of the month we have more wins. So let's talk about the DNF first. This is The Rest of Our Lives by Ben Markovits. So this has recently been longlisted for this year's Booker Prize, which is why I picked it up. I hadn't heard anyone talk about it before that. I had seen the cover before because it was on the the library website when they have like the new releases, so I had seen it on there and like not really paid any attention to it. So I DNF'd this one relatively early on. I don't know, 20-30 pages maybe. It's about someone's just walking downstairs. It's about a man, middle-aged man who's married with kids, and 12 years, I think like 12 years previously, his wife had an affair, and he said to himself at the time that he wouldn't leave his wife until his youngest child turned 18. And as the book opens, the youngest child has turned 18 and he's going to go on some road trip. So this, I've heard being compared to All Fours by Miranda July. Now, obviously I didn't get very far into this book. I really liked All Fours, and I suspect maybe the comparison is just the fact that it's, follow middle-aged people going on road trips. Because, well, there was nothing in the first however many pages I read that really grabbed me, to be honest. I thought it was a little bit dull. Nothing wrong with it. But I was thinking about DNFing it, and then my good friend Charlie from Charlie Brooke Reads told me that she had just read it and hated it, and it's her worst book of the year so far. So at that point I was like, yeah, I am going to DNF it. I have lots of other books over there that I want to read. So yeah, that's a DNF. Right, now let's talk about a book that has already gone back to the library. I gave this book 1.5 stars. I didn't like it. We'll put a picture up because I don't have a copy. And it was Normal People by Sally Rooney. So I read this for my book club. My history with Sally Rooney is that I read Conversations with Friends years ago and gave it 5 stars. Okay. Then Normal People came out. I picked it up, DNF'd it really early on because I realised it just wasn't a book for me. And that clearly is still the case. But I read it for my book club. So what I was expecting to happen from actually reading it this time around was that I would probably think it was like fine, but a bit dull and just not for me. And to a certain extent that is the case, but more than that, I found it really, really irritating. So in case you don't know, Normal People is about Marianne and Connell, who meet when they're at school. They sort of start sleeping together when they're in like 6th form, and then the book follows them over a period of a few years or so, sort of while they go to the same university, and they sort of remain in each other's lives. They're very close, but they never quite get together as a couple. So I think to enjoy this book, you really have to be invested in those 2 characters and in their relationship, and I just wasn't. I just wanted to knock their heads together. I found the whole thing quite irritating. Now, I don't read a lot of romance novels, and this is one that relies heavily on the miscommunication trope, I would say. Hence why I just wanted to knock their heads together. So it did irritate me. I just never felt invested in their relationship. I wasn't that interested in it. There were certain points in the story where I thought we were going to get some, like, a bit more depth. So, like, there's some discussion around mental illness in part of the book. And then I felt like it was just dealt with quite superficially. And I do think part of that might be because of the chronology of the book and how the story is told. So the chapters sort of jump forward maybe like 2 months later, 6 months later, or whatever. And so I never quite felt like I was with those characters in the moment for long enough to become invested in them. And like with the mental health stuff, again, I never quite felt like I was in that moment long enough to really feel it. And yeah, I mean, another thing I'll mention, which kept me at a distance from the characters, and I don't know if this is just the impact that has on me, but it's the no speech marks thing. Now, I don't mind no speech marks if there's a purpose to it, if I feel like it's having some sort of meaningful impact on my reading experience in some way. In Normal People, I don't think it had any beneficial impact, but what it did was it kept me at a distance from the characters and from the action. And that may be just my reading experience of what it feels like for me when I read a book with no speech marks, and everything else is fairly like standard, like how the text is laid out. Everything else is just like a normal book, but there's just no speech marks. It makes me feel distanced from the book and from the characters, and I'm sure that wouldn't have been the intention of the author, because why would that be? That makes no sense. But it did make me feel, I just felt really distanced from them. I suspect the same thing happened in Conversations with Friends. Like, I don't think Sally Rooney uses speech marks, does she? But clearly that didn't bother me in Conversations with Friends, and I don't remember a lot about that book, but I do think that those characters were kind of a bit more, dare I say, interesting and or unlikable than the ones in Normal People, so maybe it didn't matter so much. Sorry if you can hear a cat meowing in the background. I don't know what she wants. She's been fed. She probably just wants more food. Yeah, okay. Anyway. So yeah, Normal People. And interestingly, there was 4 of us at last week's book club. No one liked this book. Everyone, well, I say everyone finished it. So out of the 4 of us, there was one person who had read the book before and liked it. This time around, they didn't make it to the end of it. But they did say that they had watched the TV show before reading the book the first time around. And they said they thought that if they hadn't watched the TV show first, they don't think they would have enjoyed the book. The other 2 who came to the book new, both finished it, but both found it irritating, which I thought was interesting, because I wasn't exactly expecting the group, as a group to have the same reaction as me. I kind of thought I'd maybe be an outlier there. So that was interesting. Anyway, that's Normal People. I had another 1.5 star read, which I still keep thinking, should it be a 2 stars? 1.5 feels a bit mean, but towards the end of this book, I did kind of want to DNF it, so that is maybe an indication of the 1.5 stars. And that's Jungle House by Julianne Pachico. I know that Ben from Ben Reads Good really enjoyed this book. So this maybe just a me thing, as with all these reviews. So Jungle House is quite an interesting short little read, and I think at its heart it has an interesting concept, but for me the execution just didn't quite land. So it's about a woman, what's her name, Lena, who lives in the jungle with her mother, and they live a very isolated life, and there's clearly like stuff going on outside in the wider world, like political stuff, and it's like them against the world sort of thing. Now, this book is kind of speculative in nature, and it goes some interesting places, and as I say, I think at heart it is an interesting concept, even though it didn't quite work for me. And I can't say any more really without spoiling it. But yeah, I think is it a debut novel? No, it's not a debut novel. But yeah, I would potentially read more from the author because it is an interesting idea. Just didn't quite work for me. Okay, next. Back to the Booker Prize. I read Audition by Casey Kitamura. I read this on audiobook, so we'll put a picture up here. I listened to it on audiobook because it was the only way I could get hold of a copy from the library. And it's a book that I was really keen to read since it was published, because I have read and loved 2 of Casey Kitamura's previous novels, Intimacies and A Separation. So I was really highly anticipating Audition, and it then was longlisted for the Booker. So I listened to it on audio. So I should say that I suspect to a certain extent the fact I listened to it on audio will have impacted on my reading experience, because I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I know I miss stuff when I listen to audiobooks. So, and it was a fine audiobook, there was nothing wrong with it, but I suspect I may have got on with it a bit better if I had read it physically. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. Like, I thought it was alright, but it didn't quite do anything for me. And this is another one where I feel like it's doing something interesting, and I think I get it, but I'm not sure if I get it. I do want to I want to watch some more reviews on this one, actually, to see what other people are saying about it. So in Audition, it's a very short book. We open up this woman who is an actor. She's acted in this play, and she is having a meal in a restaurant with this young man who's much younger than her, who she's not long met. And as we go through, we sort of find out more about their relationship. She is married, and at the halfway point of the book, well, the book is sort of split into 2 halves, and in the second half, things shift a little bit. It's not like a big twist type thing, but there is a shift in the second half of the book, and at first you're a bit like, oh, okay, right, what's going on here? And overall, I'd say it's quite a quiet book. It's very much about, I guess, family relationships and the roles that we play. It just didn't quite do anything for me, I think, is my issue. But I do want to watch some more reviews to see what people think, because whilst I think I get it, I'm not totally sure if I do get it. I think there's maybe potentially different interpretations of what was going on in that book that people may have. So yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointment for me. Then I read The Ginger Cat Mystery by Robin Forsythe, and I enjoyed this. So this was first published in where does it say? In the 1930s, I think. Doesn't say. It was published in the US under the title Murder at Marston Manor, which I feel like is probably a more fitting title, to be honest. But I enjoyed this. This is a murder mystery, as you might expect, centred around this family. So the patriarch of the family, as the book opens, has already died. He recently married a younger woman. Everyone thought this woman was going to marry the guy's son, but she ends up marrying the father. And as the book opens, the patriarch's already died, and his body is exhumed because there is suspicion that he was poisoned. And then his son dies, is shot through the head. And yeah, so it's a murder mystery following this family, the different suspects, and I thought it was enjoyable, well written. I kind of lost interest a little bit towards the end because I kind of lost track of who was who, to be honest. That's a me thing. I do think calling it The Ginger Cat Mystery is a little bit of a stretch. Like, there is a clue involving a cat, but it makes it seem like there's going to be a lot more cat than there actually is in the book. But I quite enjoyed this. I don't think it's something I would necessarily reread, but it was an entertaining read nevertheless. Have I just got one more book to talk about now? Yes, I do. And that is my favourite book of the month so far, which is When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This is a horror thriller novel. This is my first time reading Nat Cassidy, and I really, really enjoyed this, so I definitely want to read more by them. So the book opens up with this woman who is called Jess. She's a struggling actress, and she finds this young boy like really distraught out in the backyard. He's like 5 years old, and he's running away from his father, who is violent towards him. And so Jess ends up just like going on the run with this 5-year-old boy, as you do. It was super pacey. I really liked the horror elements of this book, and I won't give any spoilers, but the way the horror went, to me was quite surprising and also very entertaining. And this is a book as well that also sort of has some depth to it in terms of its themes. But I really enjoyed this. Just really action packed. A book that I didn't want to put down, really. A really excellent horror novel. Gruesome in parts as well, if you like that kind of thing. Just all round a really great sort of pacey horror thriller. So that's that. So I'm hoping for some more good reads in the second half of the month, in the second half of this video. So I will speak to you once I've read some more stuff. Hello again. We are now at the end of August. Well, it's actually the 29th of August. It's a Friday. I've not long got home from work. So we do have 2 days left of August, but I'm possibly not going to finish anything else. But I've had enough of August and I'm ready to head into autumn. So I'm calling time on August. These are the final books I have to talk about. Before I do, let me mention, I talked about Audition by Kitamura early in this video, I think. And if you want to hear a much more cohesive review of that book, I'm going to link below the review video that Eric Carl Anderson did of Audition by Kitamura, because Eric's video I thought was excellent. And towards the end of the video, Eric talks about some possible interpretations of that novel, and I thought it was really interesting, so I'll link that down below. Right, I'm going to talk about a DNF first. What I read of this, I read probably in July, and then I've just not picked up since then, and this is possibly the first time I have DNF'd a book because it's too good. And you'll see what I mean when I tell you what it is. It's How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. So this is interconnected short stories, and it's set after there's been a global pandemic which has been caused as a result of climate change. And it's incredibly bleak. It's possibly the bleakest book I've read. It is excellent, but it's so bleak that I think maybe I'm just not in the right mood for it. So it is interconnected short stories. I read a few of the, 3 or 4 of the stories. There was one about a theme park for terminally ill children, which made me cry. It's a book that I would maybe go back to in future when I'm in the right mindset for it. But at this point in time, I'm just not reaching for this. So I think, sadly, it's a DNF for now, and it is going to go back to the library. Okay, this is No Body, No Crime by Tess Sharpe, and I was kindly sent this advanced reader copy from the lovely folk over at Dead Ink Books. Dead Ink are an independent publisher based in Liverpool, where I live, and I just think they publish great stuff. So I think in terms of the best books I've read so far this year, 3 of them have been published by Dead Ink, those being Swan It in Love by Jennifer Bell, The Hierarchies by Ros Anderson, and Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. So I was thrilled when they sent me this advanced review copy of No Body, No Crime. This is a really pacey, action-packed mystery thriller that I thoroughly enjoyed. So the book opens up in the aftermath of this plane crash. So one of our main characters, Mel, has been on this small plane trying to track down someone who she knew when she was a teenager, called Chloe. So what we know right from the start and from the blurb of the book is at a sweet 16th birthday party, Mel and Chloe ended up burying the body of this dead man in the woodlands, and his body was never found. And following that, subsequently Chloe, several years later, ended up leaving her hometown and going to live in the wilderness, and she's sort of like been out of touch with everyone since then. So Mel in the current day works as some sort of like police investigator, but she is trying to track down Chloe to find out where she is, what's happened to her. The book flips between perspective of Mel and Chloe, and it also flips between time frames. So we have clips back from when leading up to and after the sweet 16th birthday party. We have Mel trying to find Chloe. We have what happened with Chloe, why she ended up living in isolation. So there are various little bits of mystery throughout, but I'd say this is more of a thriller than a mystery. It's a thriller with mysterious elements. It is really action packed. There's a lot going on. It's quick paced. It's very like page turnery, and there is also a potential romantic interest between Mel and Chloe, which you get hints at that there was maybe something when they were teenagers, and whether that will develop into something in the present day. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really entertaining, fast-paced thriller. So if that is what you were looking for, I would recommend this one. Next is an interconnected short story collection called For Such a Time as This by Shani, Akilah. So someone in my book club read this and was taking it back to the library, and they said they thought I might like it. And I really, really did. I thought this was a really strong collection. So the stories are centred around a group of young black characters who are friends living in London. And the book looks at things like racism in the workplace, health inequalities. The COVID pandemic is sort of mentioned at points throughout. There's stories of friendship, romance. I thought it was a really bold collection, and whilst there are some difficult themes within there, there is a lot of joy as well. I thought it was really, really strong. My favourite story was the titular one, For Such a Time as This, which is about a young woman who is trying to get promotion at work, and sort of the different obstacles she's facing as a result of that. That story I thought was so good. It was an absolute 5-star short story. Really, really brilliant. So yeah, I'd be interested to read more. This is the author's debut short story collection, so I will definitely be looking out for what the author comes out with next. And then the final book, I think, for August is one that I really liked actually, and it's one that I have been thinking about quite a lot since I finished, and this is Fair Play by Louise Hegarty. So this is a really interesting book, I think. So the book opens up with our main character Abigail arranging a New Year's Eve party. It's a joint New Year's Eve party and birthday party for her brother Benjamin. And they have this tradition amongst their group of friends where for New Year they will rent a house somewhere and have a murder mystery party. And so Abigail is responsible for setting up the event. So she gets to the house first, and she is, planting clues and different things around the house. And then a brother arrives, friends arrive, and we know this from the blurb, and this happens right towards the start of the book, that Benjamin is then found dead in his bedroom, which is locked. So we have a locked room mystery. Now, what the book then does is sort of splits into two narrative strands. So in one strand is sort of your classic murder mystery plotline. So we have a detective that shows up. He's a bit Poirot-like, is almost a little bit intentionally parody-like. And at the start of this sort of narrative strand, we get all the fair play rules listed in the book. So the fair play rules were rules that were devised by sort of a few different people, and then they were sort of built on by other people. And so they are listed there towards the start of the book. So the ultimate fair play rule really is that the reader needs to have all the clues to be able to solve the mystery. So the author mustn't sort of hold anything back. The reader has to have the ability to solve the mystery. That's sort of your classic sort of fair play rule. But there are various rules. It's things like, so for example, not more than one secret room or passage is allowed. You can't have any sort of like supernatural explanation. It's got to be something, you know, something real. So all these fair play rules. So we get this sort of murder mystery sort of plot line. And then at the same time, in our other sort of narrative strand, we're following Abigail in particular as she is struggling, of course, with the grief of losing her brother and with the confusion of trying to understand what happened to him. So I did almost DNF this book in the very first section with the murder mystery party, because the writing felt a little bit clunky to me. But I'm glad I persevered, because once we get to the other stuff I've mentioned, yeah, I thought it got really interesting. I will say, this is not a standard murder mystery story, and I think that's quite clear from reading the blurb, and probably from what I've told you, that it's not just your classic murder mystery story. I read some reviews on Storygraph, and some of the lower starred reviews seem to be from people who were expecting a classic murder mystery story, and it's not what this is. I do think that if you like classic murder mystery stories like I do, like Golden Age type stuff, there are those aspects of the story that you will appreciate. There are lots of little Easter eggs hidden as well, references to Golden Age authors, lots of references to Agatha Christie and various of her works are just sort of sprinkled within. So there is a playfulness to that sort of aspect of the story. So I think if you do like those sort of murder mysteries, you'll appreciate this, but go into it not knowing it's not necessarily going to be your classic murder mystery, basically. I think this book is doing something really interesting within that genre, and yeah, it's quite unique as well. Not quite read anything like it, and I would be interested to hear more people's thoughts on this, actually. I thought it was really good. And yeah, I would read, this is a debut novel, I would definitely read from the author again. Yes, so there we go, that's August. I have read a couple more things, but I have a separate reading vlog going on in the background at the moment. So I'm only reading like probably 4 or 5 books for that. So those books I won't talk about in my monthly wrap-ups, I'll just talk about them in that reading vlog. Whenever that comes to fruition. So thank you for watching. If you've made it to the end of this video, let's leave. Is there a playing card emoji? If not, then like one of the 4 playing card suits, maybe leave a symbol for that, to let me know you're here. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone that watches my videos. Do let me know what you have been reading, and I will speak to you again very soon. Bye.